Welcome to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we share time-tested strategies to turn your annual revenue into your monthly revenue. Ready to up-level your business and your life? Then you will love listening in on the lively conversations Ursula has with her clients and guests as they share exactly what they did to grow and scale their business exponentially. Plus, you will discover how to experience more freedom, joy, and peace in your business and your life right now. If turning your annual income into your monthly income is your next step, then join us at the next 2X Intensive. Go to ursulainc.co/apply.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we talk about turning your annual income into your monthly income. Super excited to have you here. We last episode struck a nerve with some people, so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna, in a good way, I want to keep going with this. We talked about, what your prospects aren't telling you, and really how that might be getting in your way of closing as many sales as you'd like to and really growing your business. So this week, I'm going to flip it and we're going to talk about what your prospects really want to hear from you. Like, what do they really want? And, maybe some of this will surprise you. Some of it, I'm sure, will be obvious. Some of it, though, even when it's obvious, like you're thinking, oh, I've heard that before. The question to ask yourself is, what would happen if I took that one step further? Like what could shift about how I show up for my clients or what my clients really want from me? So definitely, tune into that, see what's coming up. Also, just so you know, we have the 2X Intensive course coming up again. If you're interested and you're feeling the pull, because I know a lot of people, a lot of people have thought about attending, have felt the pull, but, maybe have questions. So you can go to ursulainc.co/apply, send us a few of your details and we'll have someone reach out to you. Or if you just have questions, you can always email us at contact@ursulainc.co and we'll get those questions answered for you. So hopefully that helps clarify that. All right. So today we're going to talk about, what your prospects really do want from you. Like, what are they maybe waiting to hear from you about? What would help them make a decision? Because ultimately, selling is truly serving someone. You haven't served someone if you haven't given them all the options, right? If you haven't given them the options to choose from, right? So that they can make a decision, you haven't really served them. And know that, like, no one is born knowing how to sell, right? No one is born with the skill set. We don't learn how to sell in elementary school. We don't learn how to sell in high school. We don't learn how to sell anywhere. And you could actually get an MBA at some of the top universities in the country and not have a course on selling. A lot of courses on business and marketing, but not so much on sales. And it's because sales has such a terrible reputation, like it's a bad thing. So I get it. I get it when, our clients say to us, like, look, I don't want to be perceived as being pushy in the sales process. I want my prospects to like me. And we associate being liked with what we think is not being pushy, not being salesy, which then translates into us not following up, right? Or not really asking enough questions so we can close the sale, not digging in enough. Like, there's so many ways you can get in your own space and stop the sales process and then not be serving your client at the highest level. So that's what we're talking about today. And listen, like, if this triggers you in some way, notice that. Like, notice what's coming up, because that's what's telling you there's something there, probably in your subconscious or something in your mind that's kind of like, keeping you stuck. And it could have been any experience that happened to you in the past. And so also you can utilize this as an opportunity to identify that, see what you believe about it. And I've done I've done a lot of shows on shifting the belief. So I'll make sure, let me make a note. We'll make sure if anything gets triggered that we clear it before the end. Okay. All right. So have your cup of coffee, your cup of tea. I have like a messy cup of hot chocolate today. Messy because I have one of those stir things that you put in. And I looked away for a second, and this little mixer, right? A little battery operated mixer. And all of a sudden was like all over my countertop. So I salvaged most of it, but it was like all over the side. So anyway, here's my messy cup of cocoa. Cheers. And I'm excited to dig into this with you. So take a moment and just think about the last maybe prospect interaction you had. You were talking to somebody and they were interested in your product or service, right? Notice, like, when you think back about it, how did that interaction feel? Like, what felt good about it? What didn't feel good about it? What do you wish you could have shifted about it? And just, just kind of notice that. There's no, right, wrong, or other. It's just it's a noticing how we're feeling in the sales process, because whatever we're feeling, our prospects can feel too. That's why I love to say, confidence sells. When you feel confident about the problem that you solve or the need that you meet, that your product or service meets, your prospects sense that, right? So even from the very beginning, before you start the conversation, taking a moment to check in with how am I feeling? How am I feeling about having this conversation today? What do I need to kind of shift inside of me? And, what is this even bringing up as I think about this? And this is a perfect time to think about that belief, right? So typically thinking about it, thinking about the future of like, what's it going to be like when I have that conversation with the prospect will trigger something, right? It's like a little bit of dread, a little bit of fear. It's like, oh, I feel it in my gut. I feel it in my stomach. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my chest. Like I feel it up here. Just notice kind of what that's pinging for you, right? And then check in. It's like, well, what's that bringing up? What do I believe about this conversation that I'm going to have? Let's see what's there. Or maybe what's the story I'm telling myself about this? That's kind of an easy way to get to a belief too. Like, what's the story I'm telling myself? Well, the story I'm telling myself is that, oh my gosh, like what if I tell them what we do and they're just like, no, or they don't like me, right? Ultimately, it often boils down to rejection, right? I don't want to be rejected by the prospect because I don't know what that means about me or my product or service. We're being rejected. Ugh. So let's say it's about rejection. I don't want to be rejected. No one does, right? We're humans. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be thrown out of the community. It's really a deep thing. It's not just a little thing. It's like, we don't want to be thrown out of the community. So let's look at that. Like when you check in on that, like what's not true about, like if they don't want what you have, are they really throwing you out of the community? Are they really saying they never want to hear from you again or talk to you again? I would guess most of the time not. Now there are people who might get triggered, right? They might have their own stuff going on and they get upset about it and they had a bad sales experience and they take it out on you and there's nothing you can do about that, right? That's not about you. That's about their experience. But back to you, like if that's what you believe, like what's not true about being thrown out of the community or rejection? Like what's not true about that saying something about you? Well, what's not true about it is that you're not being pushy. You're not being salesy. Like I will say this over and again, you're there to serve them, to make a difference. What they want to know first, and I have 6 things excuse me, that we're going to talk about. First, what they want to know is that you understand the problem that you solve, right? So that's what they're looking for. So what's not true about that belief is they actually want help. They want your support. They're trying to see if you can help them, right? That's what they're looking for. Put yourself in the seat of someone who's being sold something, right? Like you're thinking, do I want this? Is it going to solve my problem? Okay. So if we dissolve that belief, that fear of rejection, that story that I'm being thrown out of the community if they don't want what I have, like if we put that aside and we just show up to serve, right? I am a professionally persistent problem solver. I'm here, right? Then all of a sudden you can have a real conversation because that's all you're doing. You're having a conversation with someone and your prospect really wants to understand first the problem that you solve for them or the need that you could meet. Like, what is it that you do? What is it that you do? And you can help them. This sounds really, as I'm saying this sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. So stick with me for a second. You can help them figure out what you do by asking them questions, open-ended questions about their business. And what I mean by that is you already know what you do, right? You already know. And probably if you're talking to someone, it's likely that they're a fit for what you offer, or that you wouldn't be having the conversation, right? You've already made it to this conversation. So we're putting those assumptions in place. By asking them open-ended questions about their pain, like their challenges in their business or their life or whatever it is you sell, and their goals and what they want, by asking your prospect those questions, they can start to see, oh, like, yeah, so this is what I'm really challenged with. And then it starts to occur to them that probably you can solve that problem or meet that need. Like, you can do that. Like, that's what you do. So by asking open-ended questions, you help them not only discover the problem that you solve, but you help them see the problem that can be solved for them by you, or the need that you can help them meet. They start to see that you can help them, right? And that's what they want to know. They want to understand, what is the problem that you solve? What is the need that you meet? And can you help me, right? So that's number one. Your prospect wants to understand the problem you solve. And you can do that, right? You can do that by asking them open-ended questions. Second, your prospect really wants you to listen. They really want to feel heard. And we live in a society, a time where things move really quickly. We have the internet, we have our phones, we have a lot of distractions. We have people just want things now. They want to think, things move really fast. So your prospect will be delighted and excited to find out that you're really good at listening, right? You're actually hearing them. And you can demonstrate that by really, first of all, listening to what they're saying, maybe taking a note or two if you need to in the beginning, and then repeating back to them, just saying, Shelly, I just want to make sure I got this. What I heard you say is this, and clarify, is that really what they said? And if they're like, no, it's like, okay, well, let's clarify. Tell me a little bit more. Like, what didn't I get right? Or what would you say I missed with that? I mean, nobody does that today. Like, we don't, even in our friendships, we don't often slow down enough. Like, we're so interested in talking about ourselves, right? And sharing our own stuff. I get that. Like, when I'm with a friend who's a really good listener, I want to talk about myself, right? You want to talk about yourself. And so when you give someone the gift of really listening in a sales conversation, it's going to shift the whole thing. I have noticed in my years, my decades of doing this, being in the sales industry and teaching people how to really serve their prospects at the highest level, is that when somebody really listens, right? Given that this is, all from a place of integrity, this person has what you need, you're having this conversation. When the sales professional or whoever is selling is doing a phenomenal job of listening, you can almost see a shift in the prospect where all of a sudden they're just so connected to you and they're getting it. They're like, this person really cares. And when you show you're listening and you care, they're going to believe they could probably solve my problem or meet my need. Like, I want this person. I want them to help me. So that's one thing to notice. And that's kind of a fun thing to pay attention to, is when someone makes that shift. And again, this is not from a place of being manipulative. This is a place from being, I know I can help this person. I'm going to create the space and really listen to show them that I can. And we're going to have a connection, right? We're going to have this connection. So that was number 2. Your prospect really wants you to listen. Number 3, your prospect really wants you to offer solutions or products, like services or products, that solve their problems or meet their needs. So once you've listened, right, your prospect is like, okay, now what? You'll see that there's kind of this click, and it's different for every prospect because people make decisions differently. But for most prospects, you'll just notice, they're like ready for the next thing. So you want to be paying attention to that. And that's not natural for everyone. That's a practice skill. The more you do it, the more you'll just notice, like, they're like, okay, great. So what do you have? That's either they'll say it or you can sense that that's where they're at. And at that point, okay, that's when you get to say, again, you get to repeat back, great, Shelly. So what I heard you say is, you're really struggling in sales in your business right now, you've hit a plateau and you're not sure how to move to the next level. Is that right? Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes. Probably a little longer. We've been having a conversation, but we've gotten it this far. So that's the kind of the click you're looking for. It's like, oh yeah, you got me. That's who I am. That's where I'm stuck. And now what? So then that's the opening for you to be able to say, excellent. There's a couple of different ways we might be able to help you. And I'm not sure at that point if I can help. I probably will say, some people are like, why would you say might? You might be able to help them. I don't know. I'm not attached. It's really important. We didn't talk about that. I'm not attached to what's happening. I'm here to serve. And if the person in front of me feels like I can help them, they get to make that decision. They are in full control. So, there's some solutions or some things that, I'm going to share with you and we might be able to help you. And then that's when you outline, here are the couple of different things, right? Here are a couple of different ways we can help you. In my world, I would tell them about, we have digital sales camp. Like if someone's really struggling in sales and they're just getting started and they're not in 6 figures of revenue yet, I'd say start with sales camp. Digital sales camp, that can help you learn how to sell. Great. If someone's already at 6 figures or close to 6 figures or over, then it's like, we're going to talk about the 2X intensive course, because that's you're in my world. Most people don't show up in my world unless they're ready to accelerate their business to the next level. They're ready to put the pedal to the metal, so to speak. So I tell them, about that. And that's, really the first step to work with us. And so if I'm talking to someone, right, we don't, at Ursula Inc., for a lot of reasons, we don't have 100 different courses. We don't even have 5 different courses. We're very specific. It's either digital sales camp, which you could then become part of our business accelerator. We have clients that then we help, they might come to sales camp and then they're going to go into the business accelerator and build their first 6 figures. So that's one path. If I'm hearing them say I'm already at 6 figures, want to get to that next level, want to double, triple, quadruple my sales and build the team, that's the 2X intensive. So those are like high level, those are the options. That's what we're trying to figure out. If I clearly know that the 2X intensive is a great fit for them and they're saying, yeah, that sounds great, then I'm going to offer them some options. Options are a great way to serve your prospect because it keeps them in control and gives them a sense of like they get to pick what direction they go. And that's what you want. You want that to be their choice, right? So I might say, hey, so our next course is in February or May. These are the dates. Which dates would work best for you? Okay. So then they can choose. They choose the date. All right, great. Moving on. They're in. At that point, it's like, how are they going to pay for it? We finalize that point, and then they move through our client enrollment process. I've served them. The opposite can also happen where it's like we get to a certain point and I find out they're in total startup mode. Like they're not even ready for digital sales camp. They're not ready at all for that. I might say, here are some other resources. Here are some other partners we work with. Here's a good place for you to start. And then once you get to X point, that come back to us and then we can help you, right? So a lot can come out in the first half of that meeting where we know or we don't know. I would say today it's very unlikely someone would make it to a conversation though with me or with someone on our team if without being semi-qualified, right? They must like not having a business or that kind of thing. Sometimes they come through, but most of the time I would say not. All right. So the fourth thing your prospects really want from you is to know that you care. And I've touched on this a little bit, but people need to know that you care. If they don't know that, it's going to be very like, if there's that sense of like, you don't care about what I'm up to, the sale is already done. They're going to try to get off the phone with you or out of the meeting as quickly as possible, and you'll watch them exiting. At that point, you might check yourself and say, how am I doing today? Right? Maybe there's stuff going on in your life. Maybe there's a lot going on. I get that. Maybe you're super distracted. Just know that might pull a prospect out. Whereas when they feel like and they know that you really care, because you do and you're showing that, and they're a fit, that they're probably your new client. Like there's not a lot you can do to mess that up. Caring is such an important part of this process. And, that could elicit a whole conversation of if you love what you're selling, right? And if you don't, I would say it's pretty hard to care about it. And you might be being called to do something else or sell some other product or service that you do care about. All right. Number 5, what your prospect really wants from you is to explore a clear yes, a clear no, or a next step on the calendar. A clear yes, a clear no, or a next step on the calendar. Again, this is what we talked about, right? Like you've gotten to the point where either they've purchased, which we just said, I have their credit card information, they're going through the enrollment process, or it was a clear no, not a fit, that's okay. Or we hit that wall. And this, again, you're going to keep me, I love talking about this because so many sales are lost right here where they have not made a decision. They haven't said no because it's kind of a fit. They haven't said yes because maybe it's a financial issue. Maybe there's a business partner that they didn't bring to the meeting. There's a missing piece that we have to discern. And so that's where setting that next step on the calendar, getting our next appointment, and not 2 to 3 weeks out. Like this is where you keep control of the conversation, because if you said, hey, when should I call you next? Your prospects would be like, I don't know, a couple weeks, right? Because we're just trained to say that. We just say that kind of thing. Whereas what you really want to say is how you ask a question, how long is it going to take you to talk to your business partner? Or when can you speak to, I would even say, hey, when can you speak to your business partner this week? Like, we want to keep this moving. You want to make a decision. How quickly can you talk to your business partner? I can talk to him today. What time? This time. Great. Let's talk to after that. If you're talking to them at 3:00, let's talk at 4:00. Okay, great. Right. Like you got to keep that part moving. And then finally, and this was so much about what the show was about, the episode was about last week, was you have to follow up. And if you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go back and listen to it. They pair well together. It doesn't really matter which one you listen to or watch first. Your prospect absolutely 100% needs you to follow up. Okay. If you follow the steps above that we just outlined, you probably aren't going to have to follow up in the same way, other than you've got an appointment on the books and you're going to have that conversation. If for whatever reason you're watching this or listening to this episode and you didn't get that next step on the calendar kind of out there, this is your opportunity to follow up. They're waiting for you to follow up. Most of them are waiting for you to follow up, unless you missed a cue and they were a clear no and they just got off the phone or the Zoom and they didn't tell you, right? That can happen. But otherwise, we might have to have some follow-up conversations. And this is where you want to reset the conversation. It's not enough just to like kind of throw it out there and send an email and say, hey, just checking in. No, they're going to be like, okay, I'm doing great. Call me in a week, right? They're just going to keep pushing it out because they're busy. Instead, I would say, hey, Shelly, when we talked, I would outline, I'd remind them of what they were excited about, what we talked about. And I'd say, hey, let's get a 15-minute call on the calendar so we can kind of just talk and dig into this. What would work best for you? I have these times available. And so you reset the appointment so you can have a conversation and chat with them again. I'm just looking at all my notes. Yeah. So just to go through the 6 steps again, what your prospect really wants from you is, number 1, they want to understand the problem that you solve and how it can help them, or the need that you meet. 2, they really need you to listen. 3, they want to have you offer solutions to their problems or meet their needs. 4, they really want to know that you care. 5, they want to explore a clear yes, a clear no, or a next step on the calendar. And 6, if you didn't get the next step and you're just listening to this, they're literally waiting for you to follow up. And statistically, most sales are closed after the 5th follow-up. So that's my encouragement to you, is to go back through and take a look, like, who's waiting for me to follow up with them. All right, everybody, thanks for hanging out this week. I hope that these are some actionable steps that you can put in place immediately. And please, like, if this podcast really speaks to you, definitely leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen, because that does help other entrepreneurs when they're searching, right? If you say, this really helped me grow my business, and they're searching, that can help them identify this podcast as something that could help them too. If there's anything we can do for you, please email us at contact@ursulainc.co. That's it for this week. Make this an epic month. See you soon.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you are ready to make your next quantum leap, let's do it. Ursula invites you to join us at the 2X Intensive. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app.